Welcome to the Ferguson Studios in downtown Santa Barbara. I am Ben Ferguson, and this is Real Talk Live. And as promised, I mentioned that I was going to talk about some of the things that I have experienced in my life in this town due to drug use, the adventures, the things that I went through. Not to glorify it in any way, but it happened, and some of the stories are, well, they're kind of entertaining, so I am going to talk about them. I talked last show about how hard it was and how lucky I am to be sober. So don't get me wrong there. Anyway, what I was getting at when I was going to school here, I didn't have good enough grades to stay in school, so I started at a dealership, and I was a lot boy, as I told you, and I went from a lot boy to a service writer pretty quickly. They liked me there, so I met a lot of people in that service drive. But that's when I found somebody that was selling cocaine at the place, and where I'm from, it's very expensive. It's a third of the price down here.
Yeah, now you're making a little more money.
So I'm making more money, and I'm kind of doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm kind of throwing caution to the wind, and so here's what happened. I got a DUI.
For cocaine?
No, for booze.
Oh, all right.
I got a DUI.
I was going to say, that's a serious one. Not that booze
I
isn't,
never
but-
got in trouble for cocaine, and remember, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, this was booze. I was living in Summerlin, so I got a DUI, and I thought, crap, what do I do? So they suspended my license, but I kept driving because I had to get to work because I really didn't care. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I got a week later. I got a driving on suspended license. After a week after I got the DUI, but the computers were down or something, and the policeman said, you know what, our computers are down. As long as your license is fine, you'll hear from us in about a week. And I'm like, okay. A week later, I got another driving on suspended. I got pulled over again for speeding.
Seems to be a little bit of a pattern
There's
here.
a little pattern here. There's more of a pattern here. On the fourth week, I got another DUI. Okay, so this was a tough month. This is 2 DUIs and 2 driving on suspended license. So I didn't have a lot of money. I decided to get a public defender. Now this was right out of my cousin Vinny. I mean, this guy had hair that stuck up in the back like kindergarten hair. He was the real deal.
He needed your help.
But when I got the first DUI, I got a hold of him and he said, "Okay, I'll take care of you." But when I got those other things, I called him. I said, "What do I do?" He goes, "Don't worry, I'll stand for you. I will tell the judge." And I'm like, "Okay." So I mean, I was a screw up, but I always showed up. I mean, I wasn't going to not show up. And I told him about the tickets, and he said, "Okay, I'll tell the judge." So the time came to where I was supposed to go to court, and I went to court with my public defender wasn't there, and I'm like, this isn't good. And then I see the court's about to start, and then I see my public defender come walking in. He's shuffling, and you know that little door that opens up? He opens it, he kicks it and trips, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it just went downhill from there. So then when they call me up, I think it was Judge Lodge. All these judges are extremely nice people, and I've met them and talked to them since. But he goes, "Mr. Ferguson, you have a failure to appear for for a suspended license and a drinking DUI." And I'm like, I look at my cousin Vinny, and I'm like, "Didn't you tell him?" And he goes, "He didn't say anything. He didn't stick up for me." I said, "Don't you remember I called you?"
Well, yeah, you're just a common criminal. He's got to see that judge again tomorrow.
So the judge is like, the judge is yelling at me now. He said, he's not your private attorney. He's good for one matter and one matter only. You have 3 matters here, and you didn't show up. And I said, "Yes, Your Honor, but I told him when I got the other one, and he said he'd take," and he goes, "You know what?" Right after I said that, he goes, "Bailiff, remove his belt and tie." And I'm like,
Whoa.
That's not good.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, you're not going to Jamaica.
No, I went to jail. So they removed my belt and tie, and they hooked me up to the chain gang. And that day, I got on the bus and I went. I went to Turnpike. I went to jail, the kind where they give you the clothes and the rubber shoes. And the next morning, I had to go back to court. That jail life is crazy. It's 4 a.m. and they're waking me up, and I have to anyway. I go back to the courtroom the following day, and in my job through the service writing at Toyota back then out here in Goleta, I had met a gentleman by the name of Steve Baylash, and he was a big shot. I think he was running for DA at the time, and I took care of his wife's car. She had a Toyota Cressida, and I was a nice guy. I mean, people liked me. I was happy. I took care of
You're
him.
personable.
And I met him, and anyway, I'm sitting there in the courtroom, wearing an orange smock or whatever, And I see him walking in, and I'm like, oh my God, that's my. And I'm like, hey, hey, hey. And he turns around, and he goes, well, Jesus, what are you doing? I'm like, and he goes, I'll call. He goes, just call me. I think my phone's. Where's my phone?
An angel just got its wings.
Angel just got its wings. Anyway,
If we had a sponsor, that would have been the perfect time.
so I'm having a rough time here. We okay? Anyway, so he sees me there. He goes, just call me when you get back to jail. And so I said, okay. And I thought, oh my God, finally. Because the judge wanted to give me a year. And if you get a year, you don't get to do it in Turnpike. You go up to Lompoc and do it.
Yeah, you're doing real jail
like
now.
a penitentiary, and I wouldn't do well with that. So anyway, I called him, and I told him what's going on. And he said, all right, get me $3,000, and I'll handle it. And I borrowed it from somebody who put it on a credit card. And his wife was screaming the whole time, "You'll never see $1 of this back, you know that." And I paid him just like that, right when I got out. But anyway, they put me on work furlough, and I did that for 3 months. But that was, it was almost like I grew up with just my mom, without a dad, and I kind of did what I want to do. So I kind of chalked that up as maybe that was my dad experience. I mean, they were told, you straighten up because we're not going to put up with this kind of crap anymore. So that scared the hell out of me.
Was that the last time, or?
Yeah, but the only reason to bring that up is I couldn't get away with anything. I'd get in my car, I'd get pulled over like that. When I got into the drug,
Well, I wouldn't say that. I've heard some of your stories. You got away with some stuff.
Later on, when the drugs came up, I couldn't get pulled. I mean, I got pulled over, but I wouldn't get in trouble. It's almost like there's a higher being saying, no, he's not in trouble for this. He's whatever. So anyway, some of the other stories I told that I was going to mention, the adventures that I had there was one time where I was on drugs, and I didn't have a lot of money, but I'm driving around. It's 3 a.m, and I'm driving down State Street, and I see a girl walking down the street, and the odds of seeing a girl at 3 a.m. are pretty slim. And I don't want to be rude, but I'm just going to explain. She wasn't homeless, and she wasn't normal. She was right in the middle, and that's just where she was.
Yeah.
So I pulled over, and I said, "Hey, come on, we're going to a party. I got a big hospitality suite over at Fess Parker's hotel," and she begrudgingly got in my '78 Corolla wagon. So I drove over to the hotel. The hotel was pretty new at this time. And I said, "Stay here. Let me go in and get the keys." And I got about $4 in my pocket, right? And this is like a $800 room. And I remember walking up to the counter, thinking, "How am I going to do this?" And I got to the counter, and when you're on that drug, you're just little Johnny anything. You can do anything.
Yeah,
right?
stuff's just moving quicker, right? It's just.
So I go up to him and I said, "Listen, I'm here to take the high." I knew that they had a suite called the hospitality suite. So I said, "I'm here for the hospitality suite. My boss from San Diego is on his way up here, and he should have already called and paid for it." And, "No, sir, we haven't heard of that." I'm like, "What, are you kidding me? It's 3 a.m. What am I supposed to do?" "I'm sorry, sir, nobody's called." And I'm like, "What the hell?" And I knew where a payphone was around the corner, so I threw a little fit, and I walked off and got on the payphone and changed my voice and said, "Hi, I'm Scott Fitzgerald, and I'm driving up from San Diego, and my colleague is supposed to be there, and if he gets there, please let him in. I'll be there in a half an hour." "Oh, yes, sir, we just saw him." So then I came walking back around, and they're like, "Oh, sir, he just called." And I'm like, "Oh, what? The timing
Thank
of that,
God.
It's amazing." So they gave me the keys, the minibar keys, and all the stuff, and I got back in the car, and I drove over to the hospitality suite, and I walked into it's like the Beverly Hills mansion. I mean, it was just like, are you kidding me? The bathroom was bigger than my living room. It had a hot tub. It was amazing. So I'm like, finally, something is going well this night.
How long did you get away with this?
Well, about another 8 minutes. So she goes in the bathroom to the hot tub. All right, and I'm in there. I'm drinking those little bottles of alcohol.
Yeah,
Number
little
one,
airplane
they're free,
bottles.
And number two, I need to kind of even out, right? Because I'm about ready for a nice night, for what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So I go join her in the hot tub, and as soon as I get in there, I take a deep breath, and the phone rings, and I'm like, this isn't good. And at 3 a.m, the phone is really loud. So I get up and I run over. I answer the phone, and another person says, "Listen, I'm the morning manager, and I want to know how the hell you plan on paying for this room." And I knew that we were just far enough away to where he couldn't just walk over. And I said, "Listen, give me 5 minutes and I'll be up at your counter. And he said, good, I'll be here. And I'm like, oh. So I had to move quick. So I had to grab all my stuff. And I remember her saying, what are you doing? And I said, I got to run to my car for something, cigarettes or something like that. So I'm getting dressed and all that. And I just knew I had to leave. So I got my stuff and I got in my car and I just headed out. And
left her there, huh?
Well, to this day, I feel so bad. I don't know if she got arrested. All I know is this poor, nice girl was walking down the street minding her own business at 3 a.m, and a half hour later, she's, for all I know, she's in handcuffs.
She could have just got off work.
Something. But if you're out there, I'm sorry. Hopefully they just let her go. I don't know.
I wouldn't think they'd do anything to her,
but yeah, no, that was a tough night for her. There was another night that I was downtown in a hotel, and I thought it'd be fun to call up a stripper. I mean, that's what I did. So I called one up, and I didn't have enough money that night either. So she comes over, and with her driver, and they were from Oxnard, and I start saying, hey, I'm double talking, trying to be smooth, fast and slick, and I'm going to pay the money later and all that. And the guy's just like, he's not buying my stuff.
Yeah, he's seeing right through it. Right?
No, yeah, and things are going bad fast. And I said, listen, we're up here on business, and my other partners are over at the Miramar. So he goes, well, let's go to the Miramar then. I'm like, oh. So I basically had to go with him. He was like looking at me like you're doing what I say now.
Is he like walking to the hotel next door type thing? Or?
He said, get in the car. We're going to the Miramar.
Now we're getting in the car. All right.
So they have a little yellow truck with a camper shell on it. And the girl gets in the front seat. He gets in the front seat. And I get in the back. And there's a pit bull back there.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I'm scared right now. I need to get away because I'm kind of getting kidnapped.
Yeah, I think the pit bull's the least of your worries right now.
The window's open this much, and there's a boombox because everybody had a boombox back then. Yeah. And I think the only thing I could do at a red light is take this boombox and slam it as hard as I can the back of his head and get out and start running. But then I thought, the hole's only this big, and if I miss the hole, if I misjudge it, it's going to hit that. The dog's going to start biting me, and the guy's going to. I didn't know what to do, so I thought better of that. I nixed that plan, and we get to the Miramar. We get get out of the car, and I start running, right? And he catches me, and we start, it's right out of a movie. We start spinning around, tangling. No real fists are being punched, but it's ugly. So I go running inside, and I'm ready to call the police because I don't know what to do. So I go to the payphone, and I put a quarter in, and I hit 0, and right then his hand comes in and hangs it up. And again, this is out of a movie, and I don't know what to do. And he's like, come on with me. So we go walking out. This is the Miramar before it was remodeled. So we're walking to the front, and the Miramar has a counter that's about up to your chest. It was a high counter, and the guy was behind it. And I said, would you please call the police because I'm having big troubles with this guy. And the guy said, he's drunk, don't worry. And the guy said, hey, both of you just get out of here. I'm like, you're not going to call the police? And he says, no, I'm not going to call the police. And so then your survival skills kick in.
Yeah.
So then I jumped up on the counter, and I jumped over the counter, and he's looking at me like this. I'm like, are you going to call him now? And boom, 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 boom. So he calls him, and luckily the other guy didn't want to deal with the police. I'm sure he had some issues with the law, or some.
It wasn't a good look for him.
Something. So he left, and he said, listen, dude, you're a dead man. And I'm like, whatever, dude. So he left. And right when he left, the guy's talking to the operator. A white truck pulls up with newspapers, and he was delivering the Santa Barbara News Press to the machines, and he was out putting the newspapers in the machines. And if you know where the Miramar is, it's Montecito and Summerlin. I lived at it. It's the next stop. So I said, dude, is there any way you're going to Summerlin now? He goes, yeah, that's my next step. I said, well, do you think you could give me a ride there? And he goes, yeah, hop in. So as soon as I get in, as soon as we start to pull away, this cop comes in 30 miles an hour, screeching their brakes right behind us. And the guy driving the white truck's like, holy crap, what's that all about? I'm like, I don't know, bro. Let's just go. So we slid out of there, and those are the stories that they were. I mean, they're so dangerous. I mean, anything could have happened.
So much could have went bad.
I could have been dragged to Oxnard. I could have been. Anything could have happened, and it wasn't their fault. It was my fault. I'm the one that called them and didn't have any money. I thought that I was slick enough to to make some crazy story come true to where it didn't matter that they didn't get paid.
Well, that's the thing, man. When you're that age, everything's everybody else's fault. Nothing's your fault.
It's being in that state of mind.
Yeah, I'm going to get this done.
It's
one way or another.
I can do anything. This is my cartoon, so to speak, because when you do that stuff, you become animated, and you can have or do anything you want, whether you have money or not.
Well, I mean, you could have or whatever you want anyhow. I think just on that stuff, you're just so focused on it that nothing else matters at the time, you know?
Yeah, there's times where... But it was funny. The reason I did that stuff is because I would instantly become the man I wanted to be. Talk about confidence. I could go up to anybody anywhere and meet some girl in the parking lot and be the man that I wanted to be, and have zero inhibitions and be, Mr. Charming and without that, I wasn't that guy, I was scared to do that stuff. So it was fun to do that.
Are you still that way now, or do you think you're a little more confident now, or?
I'm glad to be sober, so I'm confident there. No, I think you know me. I could. If I was more confident, I'm sure I'd probably get a lot more done. But that's me. It's Ben. I mean, I live with myself. I'm okay with who I am.
That's part of Ben. That's your personality. Yeah.
Everybody I know that's hearing this is going to be like, "What the hell?" Because nobody knows any part of this about my life. Because the last 20 years, I've been a professional.
Well,
right?
Sure. Yeah, you're not telling clients this stuff. Yeah.
I'm writing shows and having a good time, but you know what? That's part of me, and that's if somebody else is having that problem right now or is going through that, maybe they can say, "Hey, there might be a way out of this," or something like that. But I would go into talking about not getting in trouble by the law during that particular time period. I would get pulled over. I got pulled over, I think I mentioned this the other day, at 3 a.m, and for illegal lane change without my license and without my insurance, and the cops are ready to pull me in, and somehow, they just said, "You know what, just take the side streets and go home." I'm like, I go into 7-Eleven at 3 a.m, and looking like death. And the cops are looking at me, and I'd walk up to them and tap on their window, and they just freaked out, and they go, and I'd say, "Hey, can you tell me where the address is for Orange Avenue?" I figured if I approached them, then they wouldn't come after me. And little things like that worked, because if I approached them for an address at 3 a.m, then that was the end of it. They would tell me, and I would say thank you, and they would.
Sure, no cop's going to think you're just going to walk right up to them, right? At least that's the idea.
Yeah. And then sometimes I think maybe it was a bad thing that I didn't get busted right off the bat, because it did go on for 2 years.
Well, on this podcast wouldn't have happened, probably. I mean, I know there's one story that I even though it's not the best thing to kind of glamorize, the story itself is pretty good.
What's that?
And that's you went into a hotel room like between shift changes or something.
Oh boy, that was the. You do know all the stories, don't you?
Yeah, I remember this one for sure. I mean, I thought I lived a wild life until I met you and heard like 2 of your stories.
So this was the Four Seasons, right? And this is when I had no money, and I wanted a hotel room. So I pull up to the Four Seasons, and I walk down the hallway, and I see a maid coming out of the she had just cleaned the room, and so before the door shut, I slipped in. And then I called downstairs, and they said, "Oh, Mr. Johnson, would you like to stay another night after all?" I'm like, "Yes, that would be fine." So now I have a room at the Four Seasons.
Yeah, now you got a place to stay.
So now that was a bad scene. So then I called a dancer or something to come over.
Some entertainment.
It's kind of lonely when you're doing that stuff. It's fun doing all that, but it's you get really lonely, which is kind of pathetic in a way. But nonetheless, that's what happens. So I wanted to call and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So I called this girl. She drives up from Ventura, and I'm telling her whatever she wants to hear. And she's coming to the Four Seasons, so she's thinking she's going to meet a guy with a lot of money, right? Well, I got about $8 in my pocket, and I always had this intuition. When things were about to get hot, I knew when to scat, right? It was weird. It's a feeling like, go now. So she comes over. I go walking down. They had bathrobes in there. I put a bathrobe on. I walked in with my Ray-Bans into the gift shop like I was a soap opera star, and people are looking at me. And the stuff I did was absurd. But anyway, when I get her in my room, I got that feeling, time to get out of here. And I had a VW bus at that time, so I don't know if that, a guy with a lot of money staying at the Four Seasons usually doesn't have a VW bus. But anyway, I said, we got to go. So I got her in my car, and I was living off of Carrillo Street, which is just the hood. big time. So I drove her there, and we went into my rented room, and I didn't have any money, and things were going bad fast. And she lived in Ventura or Oxnard, and she said, "Listen, you told me you were going to get me home." So I said, "All right." So I had enough money, I think, for the Greyhound bus. So back then they had the Greyhound was open. So I called the Greyhound station. I said, "Yeah, when's your next bus to Ventura or Oxnard?" And they said, "Oh, sir, this is about 11 in the morning." And she, "Oh, sir, our next one's not until 3 o'clock." And I said, 11:30? And no, sir. I said 3 o'clock. 11:30, we'll be right down. No, sir, no, sir. So I'm saying that obviously, so she'll.
Yeah, you're telling her we got to jam. We got to go. We got to.
I give her $8.
Yeah.
I'm like, "You got a half an hour. Get in." So I drove down to the Greyhound, let her out, and I think she probably had to spend a couple hours waiting for the bus there. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that's just, it didn't do anybody any good. I ruined her day, and it's just, that wasn't any fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me about that one.
Yeah, well, I just meant the you got the, hey, it's time to jam part. At least you had that. I mean,
I always had that. I knew when somebody was just about to come around the corner.
Yeah, it seems like, I don't know, man. It just, like I said, there's so many times where it can get so ugly
there
so
was
fast.
one other time, I'm going to share this, and I'm going to quote the stories. And I have a lot of, when I was in jail for the work for a lot of stuff happened, and I wanted to spend a whole nother show on that, because that was really incredible. But there was another time where I would call somebody. I called somebody, I didn't have any money, but I called them anyway, thinking somehow it was going to work it out. How much time do we have?
You have about 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, so I'm living in Goleta. I'm a 40-year-old man, calling this lady over to my house, and I don't have any money, and this time she didn't go for it. So anyway, after the situation, she finally left. I had been up for a day or two, not doing, so I need to go to sleep. So I go to bed, and at about 3 in the morning, I woke up to go to the bathroom, and I noticed that the living room light was on, and I'm like, that's not right. I turned my living room light off. So I walked out, and I noticed my computer was gone. And then I noticed, it was funny because I had a bunch of bags of calcium. My mom would send me vitamins and calcium pills in Ziploc bags. So they thought that those were drugs. So
Sure.
they took all my calcium. But anyway, at least they were healthy and they
They
run.
had strong bones, yeah.
So I noticed things were missing. And then I noticed I had like 20, $30 or something on my dresser next to my bed in my bedroom. So I walked in there and I noticed it was gone. And that's when it really freaked me out. Somebody was 2 feet away from my head an hour ago.
Yeah.
So my wallet was gone. My car was gone. I called the police. The police came over. It was at that period of time. Anyway, so once the police came and did their report, the car was gone. 3 weeks later, my insurance says, your car has to be gone for 30 days before we replace it. Well, somebody from Macy's in Ventura called me and said, "Hey, did you just come in here and buy a watch?" And try to return it. And I said, "No." I said, "No, my wallet was stolen, 3 weeks ago. Somebody had your wallet, was in here trying to buy a watch and steal it." So anyway, I called the police in Ventura and I said, "Hey, keep your eye out for my Grand Cherokee, because this is where it is." Well, they found it.
Nice.
And they found it going into a hotel room. And they went in and drew the guns and busted the girl and the guy. So I'm pretty scared at this point because I'm trying to stop drugs, right? I'm depressed. I'm scared. But I made my own bed. I'm the one that called him in there to begin with. So she said, "No, we didn't steal anything. We were doing drugs with him, and he couldn't pay for them, so he gave us his car." And the story sounded good. And the DA lady from downtown called me and said, "Is that the truth?" And I said, "Absolutely not. That's not the truth." And it just so happened that I was going to this place called Project Recovery, trying to get better. And in doing so, most of the people that were at Project Recovery were court appointed. I wasn't. I was just trying to stay alive. But part of the regime or part of what you had to do there was you had to test every single time you had to test if you were clean or not.
Oh, wow.
It worked out to my advantage because the DA was saying, "Listen, they said that you," I said, "Listen, I go to this Project Recovery. Why don't you go to the next day was the 6th, we'll say, go to them, subpoena the records to see if I was clean or not. And then you'll know." And they did that. And they realized that I was telling the truth. And I think I I got like $2,000 of restitution.
Restitution, yeah.
They would mail me $300-400 a month, and that really helped me out because that was the time I was getting clean, and I was doing what I had to do to get back into my real job, but it gave me just enough money. If you're a drug addict and you're trying to get clean, money's not the best thing to have in your pocket.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's when you think about it, it's almost everything was planned out perfectly. It was designed to give me just enough money for food and gas and that kind of thing. And finally, I that was right when I got sober, right when things clicked, and I've never heard from those people again. I thought for sure I was pretty scared when something like that happens. The next year, you hear any kind of noise, you get up and you run out. And
Oh, sure, yeah, it's.
Because anything, they could have come back. But anyway, I haven't heard from them. I wish them all the luck. You think of things differently now that you're 20 years away from all that kind of stuff, and they were just doing their best to survive, and I kind of screwed them around by calling them up and not having any money. I don't hold any grudges against anybody, but I just hope everybody's over that shit and they're doing well, and it's just kind of a tough life to live on my part. My life was really tough to live. Their life had to have been very tough too, running around doing what they did.
Yeah, it couldn't have been any easier on their side, man.
Oh.
Having that be your living. I mean, you're making a living that way.
Well, and you meet the person. This lady had a kid, and I kind of got to know her on a friendly level before everything went to hell.
Yeah.
Before I didn't have any money. But hey, we have about 2 minutes left. Any other stories you can bring up to?
No, I'm just glad you're still here, man. You've had a wild ride. I know it was different times in Santa Barbara. Like you talk about the hot tub club and stuff like that. I mean that sounds like
there was a place called the Hourglass.
Yeah.
Downtown that was a hot tub place. I can't even imagine it even being open anymore.
I mean,
obviously it's not open anymore, but yeah, anybody could go in there for. It's when you couldn't afford a hotel. You went to the Hourglass.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff was a little seedier and shadier then, man. I mean, Tinder wasn't around. You had to go to a hot tub.
Well, but the whole drug thing was almost like, hey, it's okay. Everybody had it. Nowadays, I don't know what it's like out there. I don't even know if people still do. I'm sure they still do it. But is it accepted like it was before?
I mean, it's still out there.
Yeah.
Otherwise all these people wouldn't be ODing.
Yeah.
But.
In no way, shape, or form am I blaming. I started blaming California for allowing all this cocaine. It was me. I did it, and I own that. And anyway, I'm just grateful to say I'm clean and sober today. And we're out of time. We have a lot of fun things in store anyway. Anyway, thank you again for coming. John Cappadella,
Absolutely.
Our horse whisperer.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, stick around. We're going to have our Halloween show in just a few days. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you very much. I'm Ben